Okay, we will make a start. Hopefully you can all see my presenter screen, but welcome everybody. This is our 5th session as part of our multi-agency child exploitation programme of learning this week. So the reason we're doing this programme of learning is we had National Child Exploitation Awareness Day, which was yesterday, but as a partnership we're being greedy and we are using this whole week to raise awareness of child exploitation, and it's been such a joy so far this week to have partners come on and offer us their knowledge and expertise and really kind of enlighten us into new and emerging areas in the forms of child exploitation. So I'm really pleased to say that we have Liz Garley joining us from Ivison Trust. Some of you may have know that as PACE. They were sort of rebranded and renamed at the start of the year. So Liz is going to have an amazing session with you, taking us towards 5 o'clock. Couple of slides from me before we get started. So I've already mentioned we had Child Exploitation Awareness Day yesterday. There's still lots of opportunities for you guys to get involved. Primarily keep an eye on our social media channels. So if you follow at NYSCP on X, or formerly Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, we are promoting stuff right through the week that you can like and share, and that kind of goes out amongst your social media platforms on top of that. We're really keen on partners to kind of really mobilise and share some of the messages that we are delivering across the week, particularly around kind of the knowledge hubs and the information that we do have. We had a great session earlier on delivered today around kind of disruption and the role that we all have in disrupting exploitation and this abuse of young people, and the sharing of information and the gathering of information is such a key tool for that. And we know that the contextual spaces, so the actual spaces where young people and communities are spending their time, is really key to that. So if you need any posters or resources that we can share in those spaces, please get in touch, and we can make sure you get those. But again, you can use some of your online platforms as well. As I've already said, we've got loads of resources and kind of graphics and images that are available for you. This is just a handful, but they're all available on our Be Aware website, or like I said, you can follow us on social media. Just to kind of remind you of our programme of learning, I've crossed out the ones that we have already had so far this week. I'm sure some of you have been in some of the earlier sessions. We've had some incredible ones already, and some amazing ones booked in for later on in the week. If you've missed any and you are really keen to kind of hear what we've been delivering, I'm going to do my best to capture the recordings for all of them, and put them on our YouTube channel. So there are some that I know we can't do. So the Children's Society sessions we won't be recording. So I would definitely encourage you to book onto those. We've got a session around online sexually coerced extortion, that's tomorrow at 4, and then one on Friday lunchtime looking at a really key emerging trend around financial exploitation as well. So that is all from me. I'm going to hand over to Liz, so I'll stop sharing. Liz, if you can share your screen now and we will get on with the session.
Yeah, perfect. I'll set that up now. Can you see that, Kat?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. So just to introduce myself, I'm Liz Garley and I'm a parent liaison officer at the Ivison Trust, formerly PACE. And I'm here today just to tell you a little bit about us and what we do, and hope that we can help and work together in some way to tackle exploitation. So a little bit about us. The reason that we rebranded at the beginning of the year was to recognise the amazing work of the founder, Irene Ivison. Irene was a mother to Fiona Ivison, and for anybody that doesn't know the story, Fiona was exploited sexually and criminally in the early 90s over a period of 3 to 4 years, and subsequently tragically murdered And the only person brought to justice for this crime was the person that murdered Fiona. And all the information that had been fed to the police and social care by Irene wasn't investigated. And I think Irene was shouting and shouting and asking for help to all sorts of agencies and trying to provide lots of really valuable information that wasn't listened to and wasn't heard. So part of Irene's battle was to get parents a voice and show services how important parents are in safeguarding the children. So Irene sat on panels at like government level and has been really influential in a lot of the laws that were passed around the Sexual Offences Act in 2003. And we wanted to go back and recognise Irene and the amazing work that she did, hence changing our name to Ivison Trust. So what we do, we work alongside parents and carers of children who are at risk of being sexually or criminally exploited by perpetrators external to the family. As part of our trust, we offer guidance and training to professionals on how child exploitation affects the whole family. And we do that in a number of different ways. So these are the kind of strands to our trust. The parent support level has parent liaison officers like myself in co-located areas. So we have, I think now 10 parent liaison officers in North Yorkshire, Wakefield, Calderdale, Kirklees, Bradford, East Lancs, Blackpool. I think that is it for the moment, but basically our funding comes from the commissioners. So where we're commissioned, we can have a co-located officer, which means somebody like myself working one-to-one with families. If areas don't have the funding for co-located officers, we have a national team who cover the whole of England and Wales, and their referrals come in through either social care police or you can actually self-refer on our website. As part of the Ivison Trust, we also offer training to professionals around exploitation and our safeguarding model, which is being implemented across England and Wales now and is invaluable. And our training can be booked again through our website, and we put that out to partners and various locations to offer that. But if there's something that you're particularly missing in your organisation and feel like there's a gap, if you call our number or email us, our researchers and our training team are constantly putting new packages together and we can do that for you. We've also got researchers as part of the team who are constantly looking at new trends around exploitation to help us as workers and as trainers keep up with things that are changing daily. And our CEO sits on lots and lots of panels, again, that are influencing new laws and legislation around exploitation. So just to explain a little bit about the relational safeguarding model, it's a triangle basically, and the reason that we've used a triangle is because it's the strongest shape, and without one side it doesn't work. So what we look at is parents being the key at the top, feeding their information, being supported by services. The second side would look at the safeguarding plans, again coming together with all services involved in protecting the child, and the third side looking at how we can disrupt the offenders. And the way that we explain the relational safeguarding model is if we just focus on the parents safeguarding their child, we're ignoring the offenders and we're ignoring how services can help safeguard the child. So by working together and by making sure that we've looked at all three sides And that can involve sitting in a meeting and drawing that triangle and saying, right, parents, this is what you're doing. Social care, this is how you can help. Offenders, what are we doing? Police, what are we doing? Locations, what are we doing? And it's just really addressing all those areas of the safeguarding model. We also look at the impact of child exploitation on the family, and we talk to professionals and family about the impact and recognise that impact on themselves, the wider family, the employment. I know a lot of my families at the moment find it so hard to hold down a job, and it might be that they've come out of work altogether or they're off sick, and the guilt that comes around being off sick because they feel like they're letting their employers down, and all this piles onto parents not feeling worthy, and lowers the resilience, as well as the financial implications, which again, I've got a particular family at the moment who she's gone from being very, very high up in her job to demoting herself to the point that they can no longer afford to keep the house and are having to put the house up for sale. And again, that impacts on the children who already have attachment issues and now have to move as a result of the exploitation. So it's about looking at all these areas, schools, how it's affecting grandma and granddad, how parents feel shame and don't feel like they can explain what's actually going on, and that grandparents don't understand the exploitation and may just see it as criminal behaviour. So we have lots of training that we can also offer through our service to the professionals working with the children, but also to the wider family members who just feel that they really need to understand this a little bit more. We focus really heavily on enabling the family to understand the trauma that they're seeing through the exploitation, and that's the trauma that the child is experiencing, the family's experiencing, and again, the people around the family that are also watching their children support their child and experiencing that vicarious trauma, and understanding the behaviours that are coming out in themselves and the children and how to sometimes respond to that. We have done an evaluation of the relational safeguarding model, which can be viewed on our website, and it just looks at how the relational safeguarding model has helped so many parents in feeling like they are actually doing something in safeguarding their children, and has empowered them with the tiniest little bit of skill and tools can just make parents feel like they are actually making a difference. And I know sometimes as a parent liaison officer, I will feel helpless towards the parent and rack my brains as to just anything else that I can do to help. And they'll come back to me and say, thank you so much. It's, thank you so much for everything that you've done today. And I'll think, I've done nothing. But just recognising just tiny little wins. And I always say this to parents, it's not about focusing on the massive wins, it's about the tiny wins. Did they go to school today? Did they just get up today? Did you see a smile? Did you manage to see a glimpse of your child as you remember them? Did you manage to get them to stay in for a night and maybe watch TV with you? And just those tiny little wins can just help parents feel like they're not lost and helpless in this situation. This slide has a recording on, and I apologise now because it was recorded with a parent over the telephone, so it can be a little bit echoey, but just bear with it if you can, because it just kind of explains how parents feel having the support of ourselves.
With services, I was sharing, when it first all started, I was...
Sorry about this technology, I'll go back.
With services, I was sharing, when it first all started, I was sharing who she was hanging around with, who she was being seen with, people that were calling the door, people that were seen outside the house. Suspicions that I had about certain people and concerns, places, locations that she was going to, things that I was finding on devices in the house, if I was finding messages or finding emails, because I was trying to keep an eye on her. So anything that was sort of flying up or coming across as a warning, I was notifying them of them. In particular, in my situation, it was a couple of people that were standing out that seemed to be heavily involved in some suspicious things going on. And I was giving names, giving times, dates, locations. I was telling them when she was leaving the house, when she was returning home, a lot of things like that.
I shared information about the times that she went missing, people that she met. I shared every single thing that happened that I felt indicated that she was involved or on the edge of being involved in CSE things. So I every time something happened, I'd email. I gave telephone numbers, addresses. I used to have a secret code book where I recorded, I found it the other day, I recorded every single bit of information from Facebook, pictures. I shared everything.
The initial response from the agencies when I tried to tell them about what was going on with my daughter was right from the beginning. It felt as if that they couldn't hear what I was saying. They were not interested in my daughter's change of behaviour. They were only interested in what I was doing to make her behave that way. They just did not care that what was happening to my daughter. They were far more concerned in what have you done that's made your daughter behave this way.
In the beginning, they were dismissive of what I said, and I gave them the impression that they thought I could do a better job. But then I got Pace involved, and they listened a little bit more. However, when I shared a letter that Pace had written, particularly to the police, which set out what they could have done on some of the information, I think it was unbelievably shocking. They just looked at it and sort of threw it on the table, and they said, "We've done all this," and I said, "But you haven't." So, but then as time went on and things got more and more serious, and we had all the perhaps more dramatic stuff of ambulances being called and goodness knows what, I think they did take more notice, but still, I don't think they really read my little book. I don't think it was taken on board. And if it was then a blaming culture at that time. It was not easy.
At the very start, it came across as it was more me being an over-paranoid mother, overprotective. There were issues where she would go missing, and I would be able to see through an iPhone tracker exactly where she was, and I would pass that information on, but they wasn't acting on it. And several times while she was reported missing, I would say, "This is the address where her phone is, this is where she is." And I was found out later that they would send that address maybe 12, 13 hours later. By that time she'd moved on. They could have acted on this information a lot sooner and stopped some things happening before they happened.
She would often give false addresses, so it wasn't always easy for them. But I would say that they were persistent. However, at the youth police officers level, I think that they were sometimes dismissive. They did put up a camera on one occasion when I said that she had been in a certain place. And then they said they couldn't get any evidence, and perhaps I was, they made me feel like I'd made it up. Other than the harbouring notice, nobody was prosecuted. No. At the start of the situation, there was an active prosecution. 2 men were arrested, charged, and subsequently sentenced. That went well. We were really treated respectfully by the police and by other agencies. After that prosecution had happened, and then my daughter went slowly down the wormhole into more CSE and more exploitative things happening. The respect seemed to drop away, and it started to switch from this being a crime that had been committed against my child and the whole family being affected by it, towards more, what have you done as a family to make your child do these behaviours? As time went on, it became more a focus on, it's my child's behaviour that's the problem, and that it's her own fault, she's a problem child, she's causing issues. It obviously comes from a lack of boundaries, a lack of strict parenting. And it almost feels like sometimes they're not looking at the actual perpetrators, they're looking at the victim, at the victim's families, and not seeing them as victims anymore.
Yeah, I can't lie, this is a really hard thing to talk about, because when I think about what action did they take to stop the perpetrators, any destructive actions, was anyone prosecuted, how my child might have been treated by the police, they did nothing. Nothing. To this day, they didn't do anything. I'm not saying that they weren't active in trying to do something. I'm not an idiot, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that there was no activity around it, you know. When I sat on those mates meetings, you know, on the different agencies which were around the table, when I think back to the fact that my daughter used to get dropped off at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd relate this to the police, and you know, and I can remember the police saying to me in one of the mates meetings that, you know, we know who these people are, but there's nothing we can do because we need to get more. We need to have more so we can prove that they're actually doing anything. I've never once had a visit or a phone call from a police officer or anyone to say that we've made an arrest or, you know, just nothing at all. Nothing at all.
I'm going to stop it there because it just explains a little bit how I think just the communication sometimes with parents can empower them in making them feel important and part of an investigation and part of something actually happening. Because I think sometimes in my experience there are things happening but the parents aren't told, and because they're not told, it's not happening for them. And just that little bit of information can just change their day and make them think, oh, so that information that I did pass on last week was important. I am doing something. That tiny bit of information can make such a difference when parents are going through this. Sorry, I'll just move on to the next slide. We encourage parents to look for the tiniest little things, and we call it life litter. So when they're able to get into their children's rooms and look in the pockets and look under the bed, they might find bus tickets, they might find receipts from takeaways that they've been to, just anything that has got any information as to the locations that their child is frequenting, can be intelligence that can be passed on to the police, and again can make parents feel like, oh, I found this yesterday, I've passed it on to PC so and so from the exploitation team. It's all helping build a picture, even if they don't see that arrest made overnight, even if they don't see those cons being issued. It's all helping build a picture. We look at co-created risk assessments and safety plans, and we advocate for parents to feel part of those risk assessments and safety plans, and we go back to them if it doesn't feel enough, because situations are ever changing. And I constantly advocate for communication and transparency, and that sometimes sadly does involve me having to go to workers and say, please could you just phone them today and just tell them that that you've got the information, that you are looking at this. Phone them even if nothing's been done, because it just helps them feel like somebody cares. Because when we are involved, they do genuinely straight away feel like somebody is listening, but they need it to come from the people that are actually able to make that difference, like social care and like police. Sometimes just hearing from us is great, but it's just not enough. So sometimes I do have to feel like the bad guy going to workers and saying, I know you're really busy, but please could you just phone them today? It would make a lot of difference, and it just helps build those relationships. And if the family feel trusted, the relationship builds, and this helps safeguard the child. So this is just a little exercise to show how important parents are in safeguarding their child. So we've got a case study on Sam. Sam was reported missing 3 times. Sam's been picked up outside the town at 2 a.m, distressed at a garage. Information found on receipts shows Sam was at the chicken shack at 11:30 earlier that night. CCTV was obtained from outside the shop, and 2 adults were identified as being with Sam and a car with the registration. There has been a number of concerns raised about activities at the chicken shack, vulnerable young people linked, antisocial behaviours and suspicions of drug dealing and sexual exploitation. Sam has a number of superficial but painful injuries. They look like knife wounds, and they're mainly around the top thigh and bruising at the bottom of their arms. Sam has been found with a zombie apocalypse style knife and a machete. Sam says it's for protection. So all this information was passed on to social care and police from Sam's parent. There has been a work contract found with Sam's name on. Sam was found to have snapbags and jeweler's scales in their possession, along with a paper bag, a paper with weights and measures written. Sam's been found with a number of stolen items, including a mountain bike and sportswear. Sam was found with a bank card in someone else's name, and the name was checked out and was another vulnerable child. Sam has been linked to a number of OCG members. Sam has been identified in the background of a video posted on social media that police were investigating for inciting violence. A number of faces in the recording were known members of a gang. So the previous 2 slides shows how much information were passed onto police and social care from parents. Had that parent not been providing that information, this next slide shows you what we would know about Sam, and that would be that he'd been reported missing 3 times. So the local authority and the police would know this because it would have been reported, but without all of the other information, this is all that we would know, which shows how important parents are in gathering that information. Just get myself back to my screen so I can see you all. Just outside of sharing that presentation, we did, just part of the Ivison Trust, we did a conference yesterday in Manchester with affected parents of exploitation, and as part of Ivison Trust we have a worker that looks after parents who want to continue working with us and want to continue working with us to help and bring about change and to inform services like yourselves how it felt when they were going through exploitation and what they felt could have been done differently, and the key messages that they felt needed to be heard. So yesterday, I think we got 70 delegates come to the conference, and they listened to 5 affected parents, and that was criminal exploitation and sexual exploitation. And the feedback was absolutely amazing, and the empowerment to those affected parents was absolutely amazing to see. And there was one particular delegate at the end gave the feedback that he had thought about the journey into Manchester that morning and how long it was, and really hoped that this conference was going to be good, because everything he'd had to go through to get there, it wants to be all right, basically. And he said he can't put into words the experience that he'd be taking away from the conference, and that he wouldn't be thinking about how long his journey home was going to be, because the experience far outweighed everything that he had to do to be able to get to the conference, which was really powerful for me, because we've all been there. We'll all be sat at the beginning of this presentation thinking, I hope this is all right, because it's 4 o'clock and, you know, I want to get off now. And sometimes you just hear something that's really going to change your practice, or really going to encourage you to do something different. And listening to these parents was the best training as parent liaison officers, as police officers, as social care workers, as DSLs at schools, that we could have ever delivered. It was absolutely invaluable. And those parents work with us and form parts of all sorts of training that we deliver all year round. And we constantly offer parents that opportunity to continue working with us, to be on training events, to come to conferences, to tell us how it felt, so that we can make change. And you could just see the desperation in their deliveries, that they needed things to change and they needed things to be different for other children. And one particular parent said, please don't think about this for my child, please think about it for all those other children that are experiencing exploitation, and please include parents and tell us what we can do to help safeguard better, because we don't know. So that was a really, really, really effective day. And our training is really worth looking into if you want to have a look on the website. It's all there. Has anyone at this point got anything particular to ask about Ivison Trust and what we do?
If anyone's got any questions, feel free to just add them into the chat or pop your hand up and you can ask Liz. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer anything. Liz, you're still presenting your screen. I don't know if you want to stop presenting.
I will stop sharing. Is that better, Kat?
That's it. We can see you.
Just one extra thing to add, one thing that we often get, and I think Gemma will back me on this, particularly in MACE meetings, that our service will be offered to parents and they'll say, no, we've got too many people involved, we've got this, we've got that, we've got the other. And a lot of the time I will say to workers, I can come out with you and explain exactly what we do as a service, because we can take on a lot of that kind of baggage that they're feeling as part of being on a child in need plan or a child protection plan, and all the meetings and everything else. And it can feel really overwhelming. And I think we're one of the only people that can literally just give all our efforts to looking after the parent and doing some of that communication and finding out that information and bringing it back to them. So I fully appreciate that parents feel overwhelmed, but I would advocate for workers to explain that we can help in that situation.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Liz. It doesn't look like there's any other questions in the chat, so I'm happy to stop the recording and we will end the session there. But a huge thank you to Liz for giving us her time and sharing the incredible work that the Ivison Trust do. Please do kind of keep them in mind. Like I say, I think it's really important what Liz was saying. It's not just kind of a one-time offer for parents. You know, we all know that support for families and young people can all depend on being the right person at the right time, and often this support can be offered lots of different times, and can, you know, families can say no and then they can say yes. So please do keep considering it. And like you say, Liz, it's a great offer, I think, when you've got that opportunity for people to actually just come and speak to parents about who they are and what they do. So thank you so much. I will stop the recording and happy to end the session there. We will stick around just for a couple of extra sessions, extra moments. I know people sometimes like to ask questions after the recording's finished, but thank you very much again.